Today, we're digging into the really controversial theories of Dr. Thomas Cowan. He makes a claim that is so bold it challenges the absolute bedrock of modern medicine. He says that viruses, well, they just don't exist.
I mean, that's a statement that just stops you in your tracks, right? So how does a medical doctor even get to a place where he can say something that radical? To understand it, we really have to follow his unique train of thought. And it all starts with a completely different way of looking at the human body.
So where does this all begin? Well, for Dr. Cowan, it starts by totally reframing what it even means to be sick. He completely throws out what he calls the broken human hypothesis. You know, that common idea that our bodies are kind of flawed and always messing up.
And this slide really lays out that huge shift in thinking. Normally, we're taught to think of a cough or a fever or a runny nose as the disease itself. But in Cowan's world, those symptoms are the cure. They're the body's smart, intentional response to get rid of a problem.
He uses this really simple but honestly pretty powerful analogy to explain it. Think about it. You get a splinter in your finger. Your body creates pus around it. Now, we might look at that and call it an infection that we need to stop. But Cowan says no, that pus is the body's therapy. It's the exact mechanism your body designed to push that splinter out. The real goal isn't to get rid of the pus, it's to get rid of the splinter.
All right, so let's follow this train of thought. Let's see how he applies this kind of questioning to one of the biggest killers on the planet, the heart attack. He basically dismantles the conventional story, piece by logical piece. He kicks things off with a question that he says really bugged him back when he was a practicing doctor. We hear about heart attacks and brain attacks, strokes, all the time. But why don't we ever hear about a spleen attack or a liver attack? And this table just perfectly breaks down his line of reasoning. He says, okay, is the blood in your heart different from the blood in your spleen? Nope. Are the arteries? Nope. So if blocked arteries were the real problem, you'd see blockages causing attacks everywhere. Since that doesn't happen, he concludes the problem isn't in the pipes, the arteries, it must be in the organ itself.
And to back this up, he doesn't just rely on logic. He points to these older autopsy studies. And get this, he highlights that at least 22% of people who died from a massive heart attack had no significant blockage in the artery that was supposed to be the culprit. For him, that's pretty damning evidence that the blockage theory is missing something big.
So you can see how this way of thinking starts to snowball, right? It leads him to this much bigger, overarching theory that most illness, whether it's a cold or a chronic disease, isn't caused by germs. It's caused by poison. His analogy for this is perfect. He says, look, if a bunch of dolphins in one bay suddenly get sick, what's the first thing a marine biologist thinks? It's not, oh, a new dolphin virus must be going around. No way. Their first question is, who dumped poison in the water? They immediately suspect a toxin, and Cowan argues we should be doing the exact same thing for human health. And this is where he just flips the entire germ theory on its head. The story we all know is, a sick cow has listeria. You drink its milk, and the bacteria make you sick. Simple. But Cowan's view is totally different. He says the cow was sick because it was poisoned. Bad food, chemicals, whatever. The listeria bacteria are just nature's cleanup crew, showing up to decompose milk that's already toxic and diseased. The poison made you sick, not the bacteria. Okay, so all of this brings us to the absolute heart of his argument. This is the big one. He claims that the very method, the scientific process used to prove that viruses even exist is, from the ground up, completely and fatally flawed. And he zeroes in on one specific Nobel Prize-winning paper from 1954 by a man named John Enders. Now, this isn't just any paper. This is the one that established the viral culture method. It became the gold standard for virology, and it's basically the same process used today to find new viruses. So, according to Cowan, here's what's really happening in that experiment. He says they aren't isolating a virus at all. What they're doing is taking living tissue, poisoning it with antibiotics and other chemicals, starving it of the food it needs to live, and then watching it die. Then they point to the dead tissue and blame an invisible virus from the sick person's sample. But here is the kicker. For Cowan, this is the smoking gun, and it comes from Enders' own words in the paper. He points out that Enders ran a control experiment that's a separate dish of tissue that goes through the exact same process, but crucially, without adding any sample from a sick child.
So for Cowan, that's it. Game over. He argues that if your control experiment, the one with no virus in it, breaks down and dies in the exact same way as your main experiment, then you haven't proven a virus did anything. You've just proven that your process of starving and poisoning cells is what kills them.
So, where does all this leave us? Well, if you follow Cowan's logic all the way to the end, it suggests that our belief in this thing called a virus, which he says doesn't even exist, has led medicine down a completely wrong path for decades.
And if you look at the world through his eyes, our entire approach to health is just backwards. We attack the body's healing responses, the fevers, the coughs, while completely ignoring what he says is the real culprit, the poisons in our food, our water, and our environment.
And that leaves us with this massive question at the end. His entire argument really boils down to how you interpret that one experiment from 1954. So where's the flaw? Is it in Dr. Cowan's logic, or is it in the very foundation of modern virology itself? The answer to that, well, it changes pretty much everything.